Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Ask Me Anything for the CrossFit Linchpin Private Track Facebook group. It is Thursday, March 11th, 2021, and as always, good questions have rolled in. I've got a list of answers here in front of me, and we'll go through them. Rick, just saw you join there. Rick, what's up? Charlie, how are you? All right. So the most upvoted question came from Justin H. Justin says this: have you ever had to confront a coach or a gym owner about poor/unsafe programming, or a coach that was doing too much cheerleading instead of coaching? What was the outcome, especially if they were stubborn or had a big ego about how they programmed? Thanks. Oh, this was an interesting question. And when I first read it, my initial answer was just going to be a simple no, just a one-word answer, and then just kind of move on. But I thought about it for a little bit, and I've got a bit more on it. Okay, nothing too crazy, but no, I haven't really had to confront a coach or a trainer. I've certainly witnessed that for sure, um, and then potentially, talking about the trainer maybe doing a bunch of cheerleading. I think all of us have gone through that phase of being a trainer where hopefully that's something that occurs when you're just brand new and you're still getting your confidence underneath of you and your list of cues and all that stuff it's not uncommon to do a lot more just motivational chapping and clearing and go get them and all great. And then as you develop and become a bit more seasoned as a coach, I think there's a natural progression there. But so no, I haven't really had to step in and confront a gym owner. I've certainly, I am of the opinion that a free market, to some degree, it's not perfect, that's for sure, but to some degree, sort of sorts itself out, right? As if you're a new athlete in a gym or a program, you may not know what you don't know, but as you've been there long and a little bit longer and a little bit longer, and hopefully your knowledge base improves either from what's going on in that facility or through your own research, your eyes might be opened a bit, and then you can do a pretty decent assessment as to, do you like or not like the programming, for whatever reason it happens to be? Do you like or not like the way that the training staff handles themselves or interacts with you, or the level of coaching? All of those things, which maybe when you're a novice and brand new, you've got no clue. But little by little, I think a lot of that stuff sorts itself out, and information gets passed very quickly these days on social media. One person tells another person, etc., etc. I certainly have. I'm human, so I've got opinions, my observations, data that I've compiled, best practices, lessons learned, and all of this. If we count my time from you know training for the SEALs to being a SEAL to getting out and doing more classic bodybuilding style isolation movement, single joint movement, machine based movement, to getting involved with CrossFit and that whole evolution that's been there. I mean, that's about 25 years now that I think about it of data points and lessons learned and observations and establishing best practices. So yeah, I certainly have things that I look at and think to myself, well, that's not how I would do that. I don't think that's the right way to do that, or I think that's not sustainable. I see that a lot more than something that I would just flat out classify as horrifically unsafe or dangerous. I think those are luckily quite infrequent. But what I do see frequently is just things that I don't think are the best way to use your time or your athlete's time if you are trying to train them for long-term health and sustainability. So how often I do or don't get involved in those conversations, a lot of them are just observations from the periphery. It's a very rare occurrence that that I deal with something like that directly in my life. I have had good experiences in gyms and I have had bad experiences in gyms, much like everybody else. But yes, like I said, a lot of what I see I wouldn't categorize so much as horrifically unsafe or dangerous, but just I would think I see people doing things that I think are unnecessary or unsustainable. And everyone in the Linchpin private track to some degree sees this or hears this as well. I mean, on an almost daily basis in the Facebook group, somebody's sharing a story about this exact sort of a thing. They came from somewhere else. They weren't happy with where they were for whatever reason it happened to have been, from the staff that was there, the interaction, the culture, the programming, some sort of a lifting bias, or not having enough variance, or people getting burnt out, or whatever it happens to be. Our community, Linchpin anyway, is absolutely filled with those people and filled with those stories. And that is kind of what I said at the beginning of this question is, I do believe to some degree that the free market, people get to choose where they spend their time, where they spend their attention, where they spend their dollars, where they spend their effort, where they spend their everything, that after a while, best practices do sort of win out, if you are in it for the long game. So, in all of that, what we just said there, best practices, sustainability, doing it for the long term, those are all the reasons that we do what we do at Linchpin. Like all of this is from mistakes and learning and massaging and conversations and reading and data and observations. I mean, there's a reason that that we respect the heavy days and we don't load them up with anything else. There's we don't unnecessarily try to beat you up every day with tons of loading or tons of intensity or tons of volume, just day after day after day after day. I just don't think that's sustainable long term. There's a reason that we take rest days, as a matter of fact, 2 per week. There's a reason that we embrace variance. There's a reason we're always talking about removing ego and embracing scaling and the importance of scaling for not only improvement of the athlete, but long-term sustainability, joint health, mental health, all the kinds of good stuff. There's a reason that we do these podcasts and Ask Me Anythings, and we have all the Linchpin conversations and the the reading that we post every week and all that. It's to educate our community to the utmost of my ability anyway, and each person individually to share their lessons learned and best practices, so that everybody, I want everyone to understand the why of what we do and why it works and how we do it, so that everybody is empowered to make the appropriate and best decisions for their life. And there's a reason we have, one not for time workout each week. All these things didn't happen by accident. They all happen from personal experience and then observing the way other people do things, some of which I may have liked and gleaned best practices, and some of which was like, nope, not going to go down that road, and know where that leads, and we're not going to do it. And with regards to doing something which is sustainable, and not just, sustainable physically, mentally, your knees back, your shoulders. If you think about it, there are some things that we do that maybe they're not obvious on the surface, right? But when you start peeling back the layers, they're all there for a reason. So we've got people that are enjoying incredible, their body feels great, they're improving in all their engine work, their lifts, their gymnastics, and it's done in a sustainable fashion that people aren't getting burnt out. Well, that's not happening by accident, because we respect the heavy days, because we have days that we're going to force you to slow you down and tell you that you can take it easy, because there's a 7-day week. 2 of those days are dedicated rest days. So right off the bat, 2 out of 7 days, you're not working out. You're giving your body a break. And then 1 day a week, we program a not for time workout where very intentionally you're supposed to just relax a little bit if you so desire and take a little bit of a chill. So now, if 2 days out of the week are rest days, and 1 day is a not for time day where you should be operating at a lower intensity to give yourself a physical and mental break, that's 3 out of 7 days, 2 rest days and 1 not for time day. That's 42%, I crunched the numbers, of a 7-day week. 3 days is 42%. So 42% of the time, you're either not working out or you're working out at a reduced intensity, at a minimum. That's if you don't, as we encourage you to make a decision on one of the other days of working out that week to, the interval days might be higher intensity, other days are moderate intensity, you respect the heavy day. So the way that we have things laid out, is all done for a reason and all done to keep everybody moving happy and healthy and moving forward. And all of these things, you know, they're at the forefront of my mind, relating back to your question, that I might see, the way that other things are happening in other locations or in other facilities, and I just think to myself, that's just not how I would do it. And that's okay. It's a free market. That other individual, that other trainer, that other coach is more than willing and able to run things how they want to run things, but we do things the way we do things based upon everything that I've learned up until this point. So, and I have had more fantastic conversations with trainers and affiliate owners than I have had negative conversations. Most people, especially in real life, social media is a different beast. Let's not even go down the road of social media, but in real life, if two human beings are standing near each other and they're having a conversation about best practices, it tends to go really well, and most people are willing to listen and learn, both parties, as well. So let's see. Yeah, so that's that. It was a great question. And there is a funny story. Yeah, I'll make it quick. So this is a couple years ago. I can't even remember what it was. I've had to develop, anybody who's on social media to any degree, you have to develop the ability to largely ignore some stuff on social media, because if not, you'll go crazy, because it's not the real world, and people say things and make crazy statements that they would never do in real life. And I remember years ago I posted something about, I think it was about like respecting the heavy days, and like how a heavy day can take an hour, and I don't know how you do that if you try to crush it in before workout, before another part. Like, something's just not working out. You can't, time can be neither created nor destroyed. You just can't do it. And there was somebody that left a snarky comment, which, people love snarky comments. And for whatever reason that day, I was like, not today. It's just not going to fly today. So instead of responding on Instagram, I went to that person's Instagram profile, saw the gym that they were associated with. They were a trainer at this particular gym, and I went ahead and called that gym, a personal phone call, and wound up speaking to the owner and that trainer. And we had a conversation, probably like a 30-minute conversation, about that snarky comment that was said. But not so much the snarky comment was, you can't have a real discussion on Instagram. So if somebody's like, you can lift heavier than that, faster than that, or whatever, and then there's just this little chippy back and forth thing that happens on social media. But in a real conversation, said, okay, I want you to walk me through, like, how long does it actually take to warm up? An athlete shows up, what do they do? How much time are they getting between sets? How much time did you spend in your warm-up sets? Where is this time coming from? Your class is an hour and 45 minutes, and we actually had, of course, as happens in real life and not on social media, a great, friendly, hospitable conversation where at the end of it, they were like, actually, yeah, that makes sense. That other time, if we didn't try to sneak in another workout after that other time would be really helpful for our athletes to warm up and to take those rest periods. And that extra time actually would allow our coaches to walk around and give people meaningful tactile and verbal cues and significantly improve what they're doing, versus trying to rush through it to get to part A to part B. Like, we actually had a good conversation. So most of that stuff takes place in the real world, and social media, as we know, is just a dumpster fire. So anyway, that was that question, Justin. All right, next one was from Robin T. Robin T, where are you? Let's see, I'm scrolling around. I've somehow missed it. Oh, here we go. Did you really assemble Matt Chan's wheelbarrow for the sandstand move at the games? Just heard Tommy Marquez in a podcast, and he claims you're to blame. Matt Chan's wheelbarrow breaking during one of the CrossFit Games events many years ago, where you had to take all these sandbags, throw them over a wall, load them into a sandbag, move them to the other side of the stadium, throw them up over the wall. Funny story, actually tested that event down there just to see how the time frame would be before the athletes did it. I don't know if I made Matt Chan's wheelbarrow, like literally put it together with a wrench, his specific wheelbarrow. I'm not sure, but I will say that the day or the night before that event, myself and a couple other people were down underneath the stadium at what was it, the Home Depot Center back then, StubHub Center, and in Carson, California, assembling the wheelbarrows with a wrench. And I tried to assemble them as quick as I could, and maybe there were some spare parts that were left every now and then. So if Matt Chan happened to get a less than ideal wheelbarrow because I'm not a professional wheelbarrow assembler, sorry, buddy. So that's a possibility. I can't say that I did it, but let's just say it's a possibility. All right, next question is from Nicholas M. All right, Nicholas, here we go. Do the super fitness robots out there have an impact on your programming, or do you program for the movement and enjoy the surprise of these people? So for anyone who's listening to this later on, unfamiliar with it, any workout that we post on the private track, we give a super fitness robot time and a more likely time. The super fitness robot time is a very aggressive, competitive time, but humanly possible for that workout. The more likely time is still no joke, but that's where most people will fall. Even very good, athletes that have been doing CrossFit for 3, 5, 7 years will most likely be in the more likely time in the super fitness robot time. That's just, a carrot that we dangle, and every now and then some people get it. So Nicholas, to answer your questions, do the super fitness robot times out there impact the programming? Absolutely not. No. I create the workouts that need to be created on the days that they need to be created based upon where we've been with, loading, time domains, how the body moves, etc., etc. And then I figure out what the times will be and how they'll shake out for those workouts, be it the super fitness robot time or the more likely time. And the super fitness robot time, when I calculate those, I want them to be challenging. They should be quite challenging, but they should be absolutely possible as well. I mean, if I made the super fitness robot times so outlandish that only 4 human beings on the planet could ever do them, that wouldn't be a lot of fun. So I like to make them still a very high bar and challenging, but when people get them, rock on. That's fantastic. That's a heck of an achievement, and it's good to go. So, but no, they don't specifically influence that. It's the other way around. But the workouts are created because that's the workout that's needed that day, and then we figure out where the times are, and sometimes what may happen with that is after I create a workout and then I'm figuring out, okay, exactly how long do I think this workout is going to take? Because I'll have a rough idea. And then I, really kind of hone in on it, where I think the more likely time will be and the super fitness robot time will be. Once I see what I come up with for those 2 metrics, that might give me some insight, depending upon what I felt was needed that day, that potentially that workout needs to be modified just a little bit. Maybe that I wanted, again, based upon where we've been and where we're going, that I wanted a workout that maybe was around like the 10-minute time domain. And after I write it down, I think it's going to be there, but then I really dive into the numbers and I feel like, oh, you know what? I think most people are actually going to be in the 13 to 15 minute range in this. Well, then that gives me the information I need to go back and modify, reduce, massage that workout to get it just to where I think it needs to be. So all of them have this kind of synergy back and forth there. Okay, here we go. This is the final question, because this might take me a bit to answer. This is from Melanie. Great question. So Melanie asks, I keep seeing the elite athletes posting pause squats. What are your thoughts on them, and have they ever been programmed? So, okay, great question. We're gonna go a couple different places with this, and there's some specific information that I'm going to give, and then there is some general concepts that I think will apply to everybody. So hopefully we benefit from all of that. So, pause squats. First of all, what are we talking about? With a pause squat, let's think about like a back squat, but you could do it with a front squat, you could do it with a whole bunch of stuff. So with a pause squat, much like the name implies, the lifter will pause at a certain point in the lift, could be the bottom, or could be a certain position on the down or on the up, that maybe that particular athlete has as their personal sticky point. And that's a point in the lift they always kind of struggle with, and they want to improve their capacity to get through that sticky point. Now, the good thing, you might pause 3 seconds, you might pause 5 seconds. There's some play in that as well. Some people pause longer. The good things about the pause squat is, since you are literally stopping, you're pausing, right? Well, that can remove or reduce the stretch reflex, which can, help promote a little bit of more concentric strength in the athlete, specifically at that one area where they could really benefit from it. So that's a good thing. Since you're pausing, you're obviously delaying finishing that lift, right? So since you are pausing, you have now increased your time under tension, which in and of itself has value. Increasing the time under tension and then pausing at a specific point in the lift is also going to force the lifter to focus on and to maintain bracing and midline stabilization for a longer period of time than they would normally have to, and most likely they will have to do this right at their most challenging point, right at their personal sticky point. That in and of itself is also wonderful. You are, to some degree, since you're pausing, slowing down the movement, because you're going to have to stop at a certain point instead of just kind of like some people do use that stretch reflex to come out of the bottom. So you're probably slowing down the movement, and that allows for more time, again, that time under tension, but more time for kind of that brain-body connection and for you to feel the lift and to develop more kinesthetic awareness. That is also a very positive thing. So there are some fantastic things about pause squats, and they have a great place in lifting. And they're another just great piece of variance, and variance is tremendously beneficial as a critical component of what we do for strength and conditioning with CrossFit. So you not only have pause squats, but we could go down and talk about a whole bunch of other things, from pause squats to back squats to safety bar squats to bamboo bar squats to squats with chains to squats with bands to tempo squats to a mixture of all of those things. I mean, it's almost limitless. And all of those different movements or different things that I just said, they're great and they serve a purpose and they're beneficial, and you are 100% authorized to incorporate them and to play with them and to experiment with them. I wholeheartedly encourage it. Here's my little pause, okay? And this is where I don't want somebody to do quote sniping, where they take some little segment of what I said out of context of everything else, then it sounds totally different. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't do them, not at all. What I'm saying is there may be other things to think about before you go down that path, okay? And I'm not talking about you specifically, Melanie, but just people in general. This would be an educational piece for folks in general. So I like the fact that you mentioned that you've seen some elite athletes doing them. And that makes sense. Because if we are talking about elite athletes, and we're starting at novice athletes, you're a novice athlete for quite some time, far longer than you want to be. Then you're an intermediate level for what feels like an eternity. Then some folks advance into being an advanced athlete, and then even beyond that, you could be an elite athlete. So we're seeing some elite athletes doing pause squats. Well, also, as you know, when you're new to working out, you've got a long runway in front of you, right? It just seems like PRs and PBs happen all the time because you're new to strength and conditioning. You got nowhere to go but up. And that's the wonderful world of a novice or a beginner athlete. PRs are just falling from the sky. And then when you've been around for a year or 2 or 3 or whatever it happens to be on your journey, and you're an intermediate athlete, and of course you might be not an intermediate everywhere. Maybe you're intermediate with your gymnastics, but still a novice with your weightlifting and your conditioning, or you could be vice versa. But let's just say you're intermediate everywhere. Well, things are still going good. You're still getting those PRs or PBs relatively frequently, but not as frequently as when you were a novice, right? And then years go by and congratulations, you're an advanced level athlete. You're still making gains, still going, doing smart things, but PRs don't happen as frequently as they did when you were an intermediate, right? Because you just don't have as much runway, and you're pushing your human potential and the limits of your capacity and training with every year that goes by. You're pushing, and it's a lot shorter than that runway is a lot shorter than when you were a novice. And now you're an elite athlete. I mean, you are just about bumping into the walls, it seems like, of what you can do with the barbell and conditioning and body weight movements or whatnot. And now to squeak every little just 1.5% more out of everything, we're going to just not just squat, but we're going to squat with chains, and then we're going to squat with bands, and we're going to try this out, and we're going to do some box squats, and all these wonderful pieces of variance will become even more important as the athlete continues to advance in years and years and years and become a more capable and seasoned athlete, to potentially push through some of these plateaus that just normal variance wasn't getting the job done. So they're great. People should educate themselves on all of those things. That's why we have these discussions as well. And you should absolutely feel authorized to throw them in because they're fun and wonderful, and they are beneficial. And so if you understand what they are and how to use them, let's say that it is a 7x1 back squat day. You could just do a regular 7x1 back squat. Or if like, you know what? I know where the sticky point is on my back squat. I'm going to do pause squats today. And when I reach that sticky point that for me is, I don't know, I'm going to go all the way down, and on the way up at 2 inches above parallel, I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to stop right there for a 4 count, and then I'm going to finish the lift. Absolutely. You are 100% authorized to do that, and you should always feel authorized to do that because you haven't deviated from the programming. You're just taking advantage of some great variance, and you're still 100% in keeping with the stimulus, because the stimulus that day is a 7x1 heavy back squat. You're absolutely doing that. You're just doing it with pause squats. Or somebody else might be like, today I'm going to do it with box squats. I've got some chains that I really wanted to throw on. I'm going to do my 7x1, my 5x5 back squat today with chains. Or I got a safety bar. I'm going to try the safety bar. All those things, 100% good to go. Now, here's the other portion, which is the real talk. And this isn't directed at you, Melanie, for asking the question. This is just real talk in general. The wonders and the pros of social media or death by choices is it can be so easy to see whoever on whatever platform doing maybe some lift or something that you're unfamiliar with, and it appears a bit exotic. It appears a bit novel. Maybe, chains look really cool. You haven't seen the pause squat, etc., etc., etc. You're like, well, I'm not doing those. I should probably do those. I'm missing out by not doing those. Maybe you are, but maybe you're not. And truth be told, if we're having a real honest conversation, most people are not missing out by not doing them. And now stay with me on this. Most of us, okay, regular human beings, and that still means you're still a fantastic athlete, but you're not a sponsored athlete on the competition floor paying your mortgage with your physical performance, right? You are involved in the process of CrossFit and strength and conditioning and treating your body intelligently so that you have a long, healthy, wonderful, pain-free life, for as long as you possibly can. You want to be training for decades. Most of us just need to squat, okay? And not miss the training day due to life. For most of us, just getting in your workout from the demands you have at your job, or what you've got to do with your kids, or the curveball that threw out some other thing that you didn't see that just grenaded your day when you thought you were going to work out. For most of us, just getting in the workout in a smart, intelligent, safe fashion, not shortchanging our warm-up, doing the workout of the day in an appropriate fashion for you based upon relative intensity, based upon how you're feeling that day, doing the accessory work if need be. Of course it's optional, getting in a good cool down and stretch and then going home, that's a win. And that's what most people need to do. And for most people, just doing that on a consistent basis is a struggle. Most people are not being held back in their fitness from a lack of pause squats. Most people are being, or chains, or whatever it happens to be, most people are most likely being held back by not getting enough and high enough quality sleep. Most people are probably being held back by not giving their nutrition the attention that it needs. Most people are probably being held back by poor stress management, which is leading to a lower quality of life and just filling their body with just terrible stress in their mind all day long. Most people are probably being held back by, not modulating their intensity properly. So they have good days of high intensity where they really get after it, and then they take days that are a little bit lower so that they feel good and they recover and they can punch it again with intensity and they come back. They're not training intelligently. Those sort of factors right there, and honing in those factors will, for most people, drive the needle forward to a greater degree than not addressing those things and thinking like, oof, I saw this athlete squatting with chains. I haven't squatted with chains. That's probably why my back squat's not where it wants to be. Maybe, but probably not for most human beings that I meet 99% of the time. So, again, that was just a general thought, but that is, of course, encapsulated in what I just said a few minutes ago is 100% true. I'm a huge fan of variance. I'm a huge fan of, if you have reached some plateau in some particular area, then finding these beautiful methods that potentially you haven't exposed yourself to could be just what you need. So the pause squat, the box squat, safety bar squats, bamboo squats, squats with chains, squats with bands, tempo squats of varying degrees, whatever it happens to be, you are 100% always authorized to throw that in on the squat day. It's just kind of like we say, if you have a sandbag sitting in your garage and power cleans are programmed for the day, okay, well, we didn't specifically program sandbag ground to shoulder, but that's incredible, awesome, useful variance, 100% in keeping with the prescribed stimulus of the day, and you are always authorized to grab that sandbag, even though it was quote-unquote supposed to be barbell cleans. So, yes, learn, mix it up, keep it fun, enjoy yourself. Yeah, that's it. Pause squats are fantastic, and they serve a function. And this is all, once again, kind of tied back to what I said a second ago with Justin's initial question as to why another part of what we do at Linchpin that I think is so critical is this. It's the educational portion of our community and the communication portion because the smarter that all of us can help each other become, the better decision every single person is going to need to make. A 7x1 back squat day could be programmed, and two athletes are going to do that day. One athlete is on year 1 of strength and conditioning. One athlete is on year 11 of strength and conditioning, and that one on year 11 is trying to, tip that back squat from 395 to 410. Playing with some of those things is probably a fantastic idea, 100%. And there's also things like, this is an oversimplification, but just simply widening your squat stance changes the squat. So they'll say a wide squat builds a narrow squat, but a narrow squat in general does not build a wide squat. So sometimes if you just widen your squat stance a little bit, now hopefully it goes without saying that all the important points of performance and the mechanics on what makes a safe, sound, and loadable squat still need to be taken into consideration. You're not going so wide that your knees are caving in and now you're in a compromised position. But if you squat wider than normal and still maintaining good, solid, sound squat mechanics, and you do that's 5x5 back squat or that 7x1 back squat, and you don't change the tempo, you don't squat to a box, you don't do any of that stuff, you just are now squatting wider than normal, you will have an entirely different squat day just by doing that. And you will be sore in unique places just by doing that. And you will also be shocked at how much less weight you probably will be able to use just by doing that. So if you squat wide for a while, again, safe but wide, and then you return to maybe what is your normal squatting position, you will most likely find improved strength that way. So there's all kinds of cool things that you can do that you're always authorized to do. And just in your Beyond the Whiteboard app, make a little note as to what you did that day, how it treated you, what your rest periods were, etc., etc. So when you come back around to it, you have the data to improve yourself to the best of your ability. So I thought that was a fantastic question. Okay, that's it. Just like that, another AMA has come to a close. Hope everybody enjoys their rest day. I know that I will, and I will see you on the interwebs.